Okay, so we left off yesterday with this picture, okay, showing kind of how to deal with a sting from a jellyfish if you're unfortunate and that happens to you. Um, so I'm going to just very briefly show you a little bit more about how these stinging cells work. So once the stinging cell, or I'm sorry, once the cell has discharged, the cnidocyte is absorbed and replaced. So some also do not necessarily have toxin or barbs attached to it. Some of them may just be sticky, okay? And some can also be used in locomotion. So again, stinging isn't the only thing these things do, but of course, it is one of the prevalent um, ways that these parts could be used in Cnidaria. Okay. Okay. Now, when it comes to feeding and digestion, okay, most Cnidarians, at least typically, are carnivorous, and uh, most often we see them eating things like small fish. Okay, they can expand and stretch their tentacles in search of small vertebrates, which then, of course, are stunned by their stinging cells. Now, I want to be clear on this. It's not that like jellyfish is able to a see prey and then go after it. Okay, remember they only have ocelli, which are those light sensitive cells. So they can sense things like touch, light, but their actual stunning is a direct response to physical touch. So the fish has to hit those tentacles, okay, to be stung. If a fish swims through, think about Finding Nemo. If the fish swims through and never hits a tentacle, that is true that it will not be stung, right? That, of course, would be really rare for that to happen, but it is possible, I suppose. Now, once they've been stung and neutralized, of course, then the tentacles can contract, and that food will be brought into that gastrovascular cavity where digestion occurs. Okay? So a few species feed in other particular ways. One I want to note for you is coral. So coral is a little different in that it has a kind of symbiotic relationship with algae. Now, algae from botany we know photosynthesize. They're the ancestors of land plants, right? So these algae are photosynthesizing, and those nutrients then are shared with the coral. Okay? What does the coral do for the algae? Well, it provides it with habitat, shelter, um, and protection that it wouldn't have if it was just floating in the open ocean. Okay? So again, coral reefs have a relationship with organisms like that. So really, you're not looking at one organism there, you're looking at two. You're looking at the coral and algae, okay, working together. Just a brief note on the different types of cnidarians. So again, now we've moved down from the phylum level, to the class level. So within the phylum Cnidaria, there are four major classes that we talk about. So the first is Scyphozoa, which are the jellyfish, true jellyfish. Cubozoa, which are box jellies. Those are known for their light sensitive cells as well as their potent toxins. Then we've got the Hydrozoa, which are Hydra, Portuguese man o' war, other organisms, and then Anthozoa. which are coral, sea anemones, and sea pens. Now, hydra, this third group, this is what you're going to be observing. Okay? These can be found in fresh water. They're a rare example of a cnidarian found in freshwater ecosystems. Okay? And they're not very big, so if you're thinking Greek mythology, maybe lower your expectations a little bit. They're much smaller than that, okay? But still fascinating and impressive to be able to study in the classroom. Now, I'm going to skip over the next few so you can cross those parts out, okay? This note is something I want to share with you. Hopefully, this isn't too traumatic for anyone. Sea turtles are one of the main predators of jellyfish. And if you look at the mouth of a sea turtle, okay, if you think about it, jellyfish is made mostly of water. There's not much to grip onto. Look at a sea turtle's mouth. That is what their mouth looks like. If you open their mouth, they've got all of these pointed, sharp teeth. Now, if you imagine you bite through, you're gripping it and just pulling that jellyfish in. That's how they're able to eat something like a jellyfish. Now, if you've ever not thought carefully about where you're throwing trash or anything like that, take a look at this picture. Hopefully, you can see the difference here between a jellyfish and a plastic bag. But underwater, that difference is not going to be very clear to a sea turtle, okay? So when we start thinking about these issues about throwing trash away and stuff like that, this is something that really impacts sea turtles, okay? They are adapted to hold on to these jellyfish. So once they bite and they realize it's not a jellyfish, it's not that they're stupid and they want to keep swallowing it and they don't know. Once those hooks are in, they can't get rid of it. Okay? So this adaptation that has benefited them for finding their prey and catching their prey is now hurting them. Okay? So this doesn't really have to do with their intelligence as much as the traits that they have evolved. Okay? So that's why a lot of advocates are pushing, right, for ocean trash to be more of a focus. Okay. Now, long term, we have a long way to go on that, but there's been progress in terms of plastic straws and things like that, which are also an issue. Okay. Any questions on this? On any of this so far? Okay. Now, last thing I want to tell you is that if you may have seen this in the news over the past five years or so, jellyfish, it appears, are a type of animal that has tended to increase in population due to climate change. Now, these are really complicated factors, but when you disrupt an ocean food chain and take out large predators, like, for instance, sea turtles, huge loggerhead sea turtles that can weigh 1,200 pounds, or sharks, things like that that might feed on these animals. Okay, when you remove their predators, you remove large fish because that's what we want to eat, right? Well, what do you leave behind? All the small fish. So they've got food still, right? They don't have predators. And then warming ocean conditions allow their range to expand. So all of these factors benefit these animals. Now, these fishermen are not there trying to catch jellyfish. They cannot even get their nets in the water because a swarm of jellyfish that have grown in this area. Okay, so in a sense, that these are a warning sign for us that we need to think about how we're using. Well, not think about. We need to do something about how we're using these spaces. Okay, so even in like Mediterranean Europe, France not this last summer, but the summer before. Beaches were closed. It disrupts the travel industry. So ultimately, this isn't good for anybody. So just something to think about. Okay. Now, I'm going to stop recording here because the next thing we're going to do is watch a clip. So I'll share the link for the clip, but I don't want to record a clip. I feel like that'll just be terrible for the sound. Okay, so I share the link and post this video later today.